Let's go to 1 Peter 4, pick up where we left off. 1 Peter 4, looking at verses 12 through 15. 1 Peter 4, 12 through 15, in our Victory in Jesus Bible study. Last week, this week, and next week, we'll be focusing on adversity. Victory in Jesus, getting victory over adversity. 1 Peter 4, 12 through 15, and tonight we're going to focus on the commendation of the Christian. Commendation of the Christian. I'm going to start reading in verse 12. Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened unto you. But rejoice, inasmuch as ye are partakers of Christ's sufferings, that when his glory shall be revealed, that ye may be glad also with exceeding joy. If ye be reproached for the name of Christ, happy are ye. For the Spirit of glory and of God resteth upon you. On their part he is evil spoken of, but on your part he is glorified. But let none of you suffer as a murderer, or as a thief, or as an evildoer, or as a busybody in other men's matters. So by way of introduction, everyone needs or wants recognition for his accomplishments, but very few people make the need known quite as clearly as a little boy that I read about who said to his dad, "Dad, let's play darts. I'll throw the darts and you say wonderful every time." There's some that was meant to be kind of funny, but I guess it didn't get the point across. There was a little boy. He said, "Let's play darts." And he says to his dad, "Dad, let's play darts. I'm going to throw the darts and you say wonderful every time I throw a dart." He was wanting recognition. And regardless of how he performed, he wanted recognition. And tonight we're going to look at the commendation of the Christian. And a couple of, just two main points to focus on tonight of finding victory. And finding victory, first of all, and identifying with Jesus Christ. There's victory in identifying with Jesus Christ. Back in verse 13, Peter tells us, "But rejoice inasmuch as ye are partakers of Christ's sufferings, that when his glory shall be revealed, ye may be glad also with exceeding joy." So we must place not our confidence in ourselves, but in Jesus Christ. And when his glory is revealed, meaning when he comes again, we will be glad also with exceeding joy. Some of you might have heard the story about Muhammad Ali. And he was in a 747, which was getting ready to taxi on the runway to take off. And the flight attendant walked by and noticed that Ali did not have his seatbelt on. And the flight attendant said, "Mr. Ali, would you please fasten your seatbelt?" And he looked up to her with a proud look on his face and said, "Superman don't need no seatbelt." Without hesitation, she stared at him and said, "Superman don't need no plane. Please buckle up." So he buckled up. So as we study and see how our Savior suffered, we are taught that our trials are not so difficult to bear, as we just read in verse 13. In Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 4, the author tells us, "Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is before us." And how do we do that? We're in this race, and we know that sin is like a weight. It holds us down, it holds us back. And in verse 2, it gives us the answer. "Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith." Our faith is not something man invented. It's not something I came up with. It's not something any of us came up with. It's something that Jesus Christ is the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross. He endured that cross for you and I. He wasn't forced into it. He endured it. And there was joy there because he knew what he was doing. He knew the purpose of that. Despising the shame, as it says here, it is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be wearied and faint in your minds. Jesus endured a couple of things. He endured the cross of shame, we're told here. In verse 2, he endured the cross, despising the shame. Just like Job, Jesus suffered public and private shame. Of course, the Lord's was so much more than any public shame we would ever endure for Him. When you think of that scene and of what Jesus went through, and we just came out of Easter, so it's kind of fresh on our minds of what happened. And maybe you've seen that movie, The Passion of Christ, and just the depiction there, and how that was one of the things that any movie that's ever portrayed the crucifixion of Christ, there's always that shame that's there. He also endured the contradiction of sinners. Verse 3, the contradiction here is the idea there of gainsaying or opposition. Jesus had to endure ridicule. He endured cursing. He endured false accusations. He endured slander. He endured mocking. He endured hatred of those he loved and he died for. So that's something to remember, that Jesus endured a cross of shame. He endured a contradiction of sinners. And even though we suffer here, he suffered so much greater than we could ever understand. Second point, and moving on, there's victory in the presence of God. There's victory in the presence of God. Verse 14 tells us, if ye be reproached for the name of Christ, happy are ye, for the Spirit of glory and of God resteth upon you. On their part, he is evil spoken of, but on your part, he is glorified. As the divine Spirit rested upon Jesus, so it does rest upon his persecuted followers. Peace and victory are not found in the absence of trouble, as much as we would like to believe, but in the presence of God. Luke 4:18 tells us, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised. And then in Romans chapter 8, Paul writes for us in verses 16 through 18, the Spirit itself bear witness with our spirit that we are the children of God, and if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ. And, if so be that we suffer with him, we may be also glorified together. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. Malcolm Muggeridge had said the following: contrary to what might be expected, I look back on experiences that at the time seemed especially desolating and painful, he says, with particular satisfaction. Indeed, I can say with complete truthfulness that everything I've learned in my 75 years on this earth, everything that has truly enhanced and enlightened my experience has been through affliction, not through happiness. In adversity, we usually want God to do a removing job when he wants to do an improving job. When we go through difficult times, we need to depend on him, and we need to learn the lessons that he wants us to learn, and we need to mature. As the Spirit rests upon us, we can glorify God in our time of adversity, as it says in the last part of verse 14, where it says, on their part he is evil spoken of, but on your part he is glorified. You know, when we're going through that hard time, when we're going through that trial, when we're going through something that is just devastating, that's when a lot of people are watching. That's when our faith becomes our own faith. I think I may have told you a story about a young man that he's not really all that young of a man. He's just younger than I am. Of a young man that I talked to on the phone recently. His dad was an assistant pastor, and his parents went through a divorce. The mom left and went to be in a lesbian relationship, and this young man went through a difficult time. Both his dad and him both had friends that wouldn't talk to him because of this. And he said he learned that his faith became his faith. And I know I can tell you story after story of things I've went through from the time I was 18 years old to now, where my faith had to be mine. I couldn't depend on my parents or my grandparents. My faith had to be my own. And I think that's probably something hard to watch as a parent when you watch a child go through something that's hard, and their faith has to become their own. It can't become something we give to them other than the instruction and the teaching goes, and you hope that stays with them, but their faith has to be their own. And we have times where sometimes all we have is our Bible in our prayer closet. And I can think of people that have come to my mind right now as I'm preaching this that I know have experienced loss lately. Alexis is one of them that comes to mind, and I saw some stuff she's posted, and I know that she is really dependent on God right now, and really through this time of hurting, there's that outpouring of prayer and outpouring of a need there. And I think we all have family members. We all have stories of our own of where we have felt those times of persecution. We felt those times of hurt and loss. We've had no other choice and no other way to take it than to take it to the Lord. I've had times here as a pastor where I've wanted to see things get done. I've had to finally say, Lord, either you're going to do it or it's not going to get done. And we have to place that kind of faith and trust on Him. And I'll close with that tonight.